Welcome to another edition of the Instant Wrestling Report, alongside my partners Robert and Ryan Castagnoli. Very European, by the way. I am your host, J-Man. On today's edition of the Instant Wrestling Report, we're going to do a Top 5 Tag Teams edition. We're all going to have different kind of ways that we do our list. I'll explain mine here in a minute. I'm going to go on my honorable mentions first here. I have my honorable mentions will be DX. Great chemistry with Shawn Michaels and Triple H. You know, I didn't really work that much, but still in my honorable mentions list. I have Rated RKO with Edge and Randy Orton. Really not too much to say there. Just feuded with DX around that 06-07 time, but two of my favorite wrestlers, so I decided to put on my list. And then also the rest, I know the sound may lack, but the rest of TNA Ring of Honor teams that really renovated, you know, this tag team division around the early 2000s and getting into there, like Triple X, Machine Guns, and Beer Money. And then Ring of Honor, you got the Second City Saints and Steen and Generico, Kings of Wrestling, and American Wolves. Okay, now to go on my top 5. The way I do my top, or the way I'm going to do my top 5 is kind of my favorite tag teams to watch. Not really, you know, the historical value in it, but they did have some historical value indeed, but I'm kind of going with my favorite tag teams to watch, the ones that will really get me interested. There's a lot that'll get me interested, but these are my top 5 for me. My number 5 is going to be a team that is probably an historical reference, would be the TNA tag team so far in TNA's history. I mean, there might be some down the road, but I'm going to go with America's Most Wanted, Cowboy James Storms and Wildcat Chris Harris. Absolutely a phenomenal tag team. Had great matches with Triple X and the Naturals and Team 3D. That brutal match at Turning Point that they had with Triple X in that cage where Skipper did that great spot walking across that great, just bloody battles that they had, and ended up being 6-time NWA Tag Team Champions. So that there's my number 5 spot, so AMW.
My honorable mentions are Sting and Lex Luger. I'm a big Sting fan. And when they put Luger and Sting together, it's kind of like a Rated RKO now from the 90s. Kings of Wrestling, the longest reigning tag team champions for Ring of Honor. And then DX, just Shawn Michaels in general.
Not Triple H, you wasn't in it.
Well, I mean, just Shawn was the greatest ever,
yeah.
And then Triple H is pretty damn good too.
Yeah.
My top 5, I took one from each company: Ring of Honor, WCW, WWE, and TNA. And then I took an all-time one as number 1. So my number 5 came out of Ring of Honor, 6-time Ring of Honor champions, the Briscoe brothers, Mark and Jay. They're brothers. They've been together since the start of TNA, or Ring of Honor. And they're just a phenomenal tag team to watch. And they are not affiliated with the Briscoes from WWF. They are better.
For all of you that don't know.
That ain't even their last names.
No, it's not.
But for my honorable mentions, I have the Briscoes, also from Ring of Honor. In that time where tag team division was kind of abysmal and there was nothing going on from that 2005, 2007, I would consider them the best tag team in the world at that time. They really brought that back. And my other honorable mention is the Hollywood Blondes. Steve Austin and Pillman, time in WCW, were not doing anything. They threw them together. They thought nothing was going to come of it. They ended up being great. When they started picking up steam, they were like, cut it in half, and pretty much did nothing with them after that. But we know what happened after that. Stone Cold became huge, and Pillman did some great stuff in the Cruiserweight division with Liger. So I just feel like this right here deserves a mention. And then also, for my number 5, I have the Legion of Doom. When you're a kid, when you watch professional wrestling, when you look at the grandeur of things, you look at, you're like, wow, that is mega, that is huge. You think maybe Hulk Hogan or Stone Cold or The Ultimate Warrior or something that's just like, wow, that's captivating. When I was young, first thing that really captivated me in professional wrestling was the Legion of Doom, with the shoulder pads and the face paint and the what a rush and the top rope, the clothesline that they did, the Doomsday device, or that teams still use that today. And just, they, as a whole, they weren't the great wrestlers, but as a tag team, they were one of the most entertaining, and I vaguely remember them when I was young being what really hooked me when I was really young to watching. Yeah. So that's my number 5.
Speaking of the Doomsday device, I have a tag team that uses that very well, which would be the 6-time Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, the Briscoe brothers, that Robert had on his list and Ryan had on his honorable mention list. Just when you look at, just kind of same with AMW, I mean, there might be tag teams down the road in Ring of Honor, but there's not a tag team that you look at to describe the tag team division that would be the Briscoe brothers. There since day one. Jay Briscoe in the very first match of Ring of Honor at their first event in 2002.
Legitimate first match.
Exactly. And not that crap that was before it that was really not good. But yeah, they had great matches with, you could just go through everybody. The Steen and Genericos, the, Generation Nexus they had matches with, the Second City Saints, they have any matches with them too. I mean, everything. Kings of Wrestling, especially nowadays. Yeah. The American Wolves. I mean, everything you got today. And there's just every single tag team that come in, the stepping stone that you have to go through is the Briscoe brothers. I mean, they're just, and as Ryan said as well, which is a great point, that they totally renovated the early 2000s when they come in there and just renovated that tag team division. So my number 4 is going to be the Briscoe brothers.
Number 4 for me came out of WCW. I was a WCW fan first. They were 10-time champions. They were brothers. Harlem Heat. Just when I first started watching them, I kind of followed them with just Stevie Ray had the power, Booker had the spin-a-rooney and the axe kick, and just watching them and then watching Booker, break away from his brother and start his own thing, his TV title, world champion. It's just, the Harlem Heat, when I first started watching it in the mid-90s, they were the elite of WCW at the time, the tag team division. And so they made number 4 for me.
My number 4 is Edge and Christian. I feel like when I was real hot into professional wrestling, these guys were the number 1 tag team in my opinion. A lot of people like, the TLCs and stuff. Those were matches that really made all 3 of those teams and put them where they are today. You look at where they're at now. And I feel like, the 5-second pose stuff and all this crap, the stuff they did was fantastic. I still personally think I like Christian more than I like Edge. So like both of them, I think they're both great. But Edge and Christian is number 4 for me. I feel like when I was really hot into wrestling, this was the tag team that I really enjoyed. So
number 3, working with that Edge and Christian pick that you just had, I have the Hardy Boys. As he spoke with all those, great TLC matches, the ones that were, 2 matches of the year in 2000 and 2001 when they had the one at TLC, I think it was, and then the one at WrestleMania 17 also. But I mean, they just absolutely made their careers. When it comes to, you're going to be known for the rest of your wrestling career now as just the guys that innovated a style of professional wrestling. And then you had the other matches they had, the tables matches, the regular matches that they had with all 3 of those working around there, and then moving on, they still tagged together and as brothers, so they had great chemistry. So the Hardy Boys, my number 3.
Number 3 for me came out of TNA. 6-time NWA TNA Tag Team Champions, America's Most Wanted, Cowboy James Storm, Wildcat Chris Harris. Just the chemistry they had in the ring, the ability they could do tag team moves together. They could do high-flying moves, they could brawl. At the time when TNA first got started, they were there. They were there for 5 years. They were the elite of TNA. There's going to be a future tag team. They're just as good. James Storm is actually a part of another tag team now called Beer Money with Robert Roode. They're part of Fortune. They are to the elite status almost, but not quite where America's Most Wanted was.
Yeah, my number 3, I have. I want to let you know how I did mine. They did theirs different. Mine is for my number 3. I did where it's from the mid '90s down is my number 3 to the mid '90s up, like the Attitude Era is my number 2, and then number 1 is my current favorite tag team. So my number 3 is actually the Midnight Express. Managed by Jim Cornette. It's Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, not the other ones. I know there's been a lot of different ones. This is the ones that I really enjoyed. These guys really put together a lot of great matches. When I said, the Legion of Doom were kind of like the grandeur, the big spectacle, the tag team where it's about the look and all this. These guys were about the in-ring quality and about putting on a great show and having great matches. One of my favorite matches with them was from the Rise and Fall of WCW against the Southern Boys. And I think that was really one of those matches where I was like, wow, back then they had great matches like this. You really don't see that back when you look at older matches. You see a lot of guys who are dressed up, looking crazy and tag teams and all that. That's how it was in the early 90s, late 80s. And I feel like they kind of brought the wrestling to the tag team division in that time. So that's why I have them number 3.
Number 2 for me is going to be a tag team that was together for 6 months. I mean, it may sound crazy, but just the way, if they would stay together, they would be, probably known as one of the best of all time. Just the way their chemistry works, being best friends. It is the phenomenal AJ Styles and the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels. They got together and had those great matches with LAX. Ended up having, I think, the match of the year. I think it was somewhere around the summertime. I think it was. It might have been the Ultimate X one that they had. But only together for 6 months. But when you have the chemistry of those friends together, because they're great friends. I think, AJ named one of his sons after Daniels or something like that. It's just crazy. So, I mean, kind of like with DX when they were just had that great chemistry working together as friends. And 2 of the absolute best athletes in professional wrestling today and back in the past as well. So AJ and Daniels, my number 2.
My number 2, you can almost, everything he said about that tag team, you can say about mine. They've been friends since high school. They've been 7-time tag team champions. They came out of the WWF. They came up as a tag team. They broke away. Edge and Christian. Just everything they do in the ring, the promos they cut, the whole 5-second pose. You can take Edge and Christian from 2000, and 10 years later, you could put them back together Hopefully they will. And you'd have the same stuff. Christian is as good, if not better, than Edge. The whole TLC run they had against the Hardys and the Dudleys, just everything they've done. Edge has only lost one TLC match ever, and unfortunately that was against John Cena. So he's never lost to a true wrestler. So Edge and Christian's number 2 for me.
My number 2 is actually the Rock and Sock from the Attitude Era. I feel like at this time, tag team divisions were tag team wrestling was kind of fading, and they kind of put these two together, and they made just some of the greatest segments. This Is Your Life was one of my favorite segments they ever did. One of the highest rated segments, might have been of all time.
You get like a 10 or 11 rating.
That's nuts, yeah. And just them together, The Rock was entertaining. They were entertaining together. At the time, I didn't really care for Mick Foley, but later on, now I realize how great he was. And The Rock, he was. I want to say the main reason I switched from WCW to WWF, and he was, what do I want to see this? I want to see NWO doing the same thing on WCW. I want to see Rock cutting great promos and doing great stuff with Mick Foley and
fresh.
This stuff.
New and fresh.
Yeah.
That was why I have the Rock and Sock number 2. I feel like they were just one of the most entertaining tag teams of all time. Yeah. And that's how number 2.
Great team there. For my number 1, I'm going with one that Robert and Ryan also had in their list. I'm going with Edge and Christian. I just think they're not, they were the flash. They didn't have the flashiness, as the Hardys going up and doing all the aerial stuff, but they did do it. They didn't have the brawling capabilities like the Dudleys that they had in those great matches, but they did do it. But you had Edge and Christian who were just out there cutting the hilarious promos where they want to do it, and they go out there in the ring and it, as we've said, they get serious and it gets real and it's, just match after match is just great. As we said with those, matches they had in 2000, 2001 was matches of the year, 7-time tag champions, and then of course moving on, and you had Edge becoming the huge star, the rare superstar now, which is like the 10-time champion, the world champion, something like that, and Christian going on, not really doing too much as Edge did, but going on to like TNA, and he ran that company for a while too. So my number 1 is going to be Edge and Christian.
Number 1 for me is probably the greatest tag team of all time tag teams. 23-time champions. They've been champion in WCW, champion in ECW, in Japan, in TNA, Team 3D. When you talk about Dudley Boys, also they've been called. Yeah. When you talk about chemistry, these two have it. There's no other tag team that's ever held the titles that many times. They've been together that long. Tag team wrestling is based on the Dudleys. They can high fly in a TLC match. They can do an Ultimate X match. They can do any
type.
They did one and they used a ladder in it.
But they did it though. TLC matches, ladder matches, they're just an all around, the best of the best in tag teams.
My number 1 is my favorite current tag team right now in the world is the Kings of Wrestling. Yes, Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli. I feel like these guys are so amazing, not as a tag team, that when they become a tag team, they are twice as amazing.
Loads of godliness.
Loads of godliness.
Huge.
I feel like these guys, even with the stuff that the tactics they do on their heels, I really don't even care. I feel like they are, even before, some people think they just formed and they're the Kings of Wrestling now. No, they were together for a long time before this. They split up, did their own thing, they feuded with each other. But I currently feel like Chris Hero is, in my opinion, the best wrestler in the world. He takes every style of wrestling and puts it together and makes it his own, and I just feel like right now these two guys are together are my favorite tag team. Could do without Shane Hagador.
Yes, really Chris Hero can also announce.
Go away.
Yeah, Chris Hero's pretty good. Chris Hero's pretty good about everything.
Yeah, they're pretty good about everything. Yeah,
but Hagador he could probably go.
Yeah, probably.
But that's my number 1. Yeah.
All right, that'll wrap it up for our top 5 tag teams edition for Robert and Ryan Castagnoli. There literally was nothing in that cup.
There's nothing
in
there
the entire time. I'm your host, J-Man. Thank you for watching another edition of the Instant Wrestling Report, your source for professional wrestling news, information, and opinions instantly.
This is a battleground!